Have you ever wondered what led to the mass hysteria during the Salem witch trials in 1692? Picture this: a small colonial settlement in Massachusetts, gripped by fear and suspicion. Between 144 to 185 individuals found themselves accused of witchcraft. 19 of them never saw the light of day again, executed under the heavy weight of these accusations. Now, what is unusual about this dark chapter in history is the pattern of accusations. Young girls, barely past their childhood, were the ones pointing fingers, an aberration from the norm. This unusual facet led to an even more unusual community participation, with the trials quickly gaining official endorsement. This was a time of fear, a time of suspicion, a time of widespread hysteria. So what were the factors that fueled this hysteria and fear of witchcraft in colonial America? Let's delve into the depths of history to find out. Firstly, the idea of witchcraft as a threat was not a new concept, but a dark legacy brought over from England. The Old World was no stranger to the persecution of witches, marked by trials and executions that left a deep imprint on societal psyche. This fear, this belief in the existence and danger of witches, was carried across the Atlantic to the New World. It pervaded the colonies, seeping into the foundations of their burgeoning society. It is important to remember that the settlers did not arrive on these shores free from the influences of their homeland. The shadow of Europe's witch trials stretched long and far, reaching even the colonial heartlands of America. This pre-existing fear, this inherited dread, set the stage for the hysteria that would envelop Salem. But it was merely the first act in a complex drama. This pre-existing fear set the stage for the trials, but what else contributed? At the heart of the Salem community was the Puritan Worldview, a belief system that saw the world in black and white, good and evil. It was a perspective deeply rooted in the supernatural and providence. To the Puritans, every event was a message from God, whether a blessing or a warning. This mindset made the extraordinary seem ordinary, and the unexplainable explainable. Witchcraft in this context was not an abstract idea, but a palpable threat. It was a manifestation of evil that had to be eradicated. This belief, combined with a society already brimming with tension and fear, created a fertile ground for hysteria. A storm, a failed crop, and unexpected death, all could be attributed to the malevolent work of witches. And so, when the first accusations of witchcraft arose, they were not dismissed as ludicrous but taken as a serious threat to the community's divine sanctity. With the stage set and the players in place, the scene was ready for an event out of the ordinary. In a twist to the tale, the accusations did not follow the usual patterns. Imagine, if you will, colonial America in the year 1692, a time of strict societal norms and expectations. Yet something out of the ordinary occurred. Accusations of witchcraft, a grave crime in those days, were not coming from the usual sources. They were not from the elders of the community or those in positions of authority, but from young girls. This was highly unusual for the time, as children were often seen and not heard. The girls' accusations sparked a wildfire of suspicion that rapidly spread through the community, leading to widespread participation in the witch hunt. It was as if the entire village was ensnared in this frenzy, everyone eager to point a finger, quick to condemn their neighbors. This level of community involvement was unprecedented, prompting a full endorsement from the officials, leading to trials and ultimately executions. But the accusations did not occur in a vacuum. What was the backdrop against which these accusations were made? Decades of ongoing violence and long-standing disagreements about property ownership had taken a toll on the community. In the late 17th century, New England was still reeling from the effects of King Philip's War. This conflict, one of the most devastating in American history, had left deep scars on the colonists. The fear and trauma from this war, coupled with the Puritans' belief in the supernatural, created a fertile ground for fear and suspicion to take root. But there was another factor at play here, one that was much closer to home. Long-standing disputes about property ownership between neighbors in Salem Village and Topsfield were another source of tension. These disagreements were sometimes the catalyst for accusations of witchcraft. It seems that the Salem witch trials were not only about fear of the supernatural, but also about more territorial concerns. The border disputes between Salem Village and Topsfield were not just about land, they were also about power, influence, and identity. These disputes fueled animosity within the community, leading to tragic deaths and imprisonments. Generational conflicts and clerical errors only served to exacerbate these tensions. The fear, suspicion, and mistrust that these disputes created within the community provided the perfect backdrop for the witchcraft accusations to flourish. It seems that the witch trials were, in many ways, a reflection of the societal tensions of the time. So with a society ripe for accusations, the final piece of the puzzle was the political uncertainty of the time. The accusations came at a time of political uncertainty, further fueling the fear and hysteria. The year was 1692. The English rulers, William and Mary, had just waged war with France in the American colonies. This war, often overlooked, had profound implications for the inhabitants of Salem Village. They lived in constant dread of possible attacks, and this pervasive fear seeped into their everyday lives, creating an atmosphere ripe for suspicion and panic. This was a time of transition and upheaval. The Charter of Massachusetts had been revoked just a few years prior, and a new one was yet to be finalized. This left the colonists in a state of legal limbo, with no clear governing body to turn to in times of crisis. It was within this tumultuous backdrop that the witch trials began. In this climate of uncertainty, it was all too easy for mass hysteria to take hold. With no clear leadership or legal guidelines, the people of Salem were left to their own devices, and their fears and superstitions ran rampant. The trials themselves became a sort of political tool, a way for the community to exert some semblance of control in an otherwise chaotic world. They provided a means of identifying and dealing with perceived threats, real or imagined. And then, just as suddenly as they began, the trials came to an end. Governor Phipps, realizing the trials had spiraled out of control, stepped in and pardoned those still imprisoned on charges of witchcraft. His intervention marked the beginning of the end of this dark chapter in the history of colonial America. And so, in the crucible of fear, superstition, and uncertainty, the Salem witch trials were born, a dark chapter in history that continues to fascinate us to this day.
Thank you for watching. Hope you found this video informative and entertaining. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment. We do like to know and hear your feedback. And if you have the means, please consider supporting us on Patreon, where you can get early access to our videos, and where we post bonus material. Till next time, this is Geeky Tidbits saying cheers and have a good day.